Before the NBA became obsessed with big men who could shoot threes, there was Terry Mills. He might not be a household name like some other contemporaries, but he carved out a solid 11-year NBA career as a 6'10" forward center with a sweet outside touch. Born in Romulus, Michigan, Mills was a hometown hero who played at the University of Michigan before bringing his talents to the NBA. Mills was part of Michigan's famed recruiting class that included Glen and Rumeal Robinson. After helping the Wolverines win the 1989 NCAA championship, he was selected 16th overall in the 1990 NBA draft. But it was when Mills returned home to Detroit in 1992 that his career really took off. Playing for the Pistons, he developed into one of the league's first true stretch fives, a big man who could pull opposing centers away from the basket with his outside shooting. This was revolutionary at the time, when most centers were expected to camp out in the paint. If you're talking about Michigan basketball in the late 80s, you can't skip over Terry Mills. Mills, along with fellow future NBA players Glen and Rumeal Robinson, would change the trajectory of Michigan basketball forever. Coming out of Romulus High School as a McDonald's All-American in 1986, Mills was already a big deal in Michigan. He was Mr. Basketball in the state and considered one of the top recruits in the country. Though he initially enrolled at Michigan for the 86-87 season, he had to sit out as a Prop 48 casualty. And when Mills finally hit the court in 87-88, he did not disappoint. Playing alongside future NBA star Glen Rice, Mills averaged 12.1 points and 6.5 rebounds per game as a freshman. Mills' sophomore season saw him continue to develop, but the real story was brewing behind the scenes. Head coach Bill Frieder had assembled an incredible amount of talent, but the team hadn't quite put it all together yet. That changed dramatically in March of 1989 when athletic director Bo Schembechler made the shocking decision to replace Frieder with assistant coach Steve Fisher right before the NCAA tournament after learning Frieder had accepted the Arizona State job. What happened next is the stuff of college basketball legend. The Wolverines, now led by intern coach Steve Fisher, went on an incredible run through the tournament. Mills stepped up his game at the perfect time, providing crucial interior scoring and rebounding to complement Rice's outside shooting. Michigan shocked everyone by winning the national championship, with Mills playing a vital supporting role to tournament MVP Glen Rice. For his senior season in 89-90, with Rice now in the NBA, Mills became the focal point of the Michigan offense. He responded with his best college season, averaging 18 points and 8.3 rebounds per game. Mills showed off an expanded offensive game that included the outside shooting touch that would later become his NBA calling card. He earned all Big Ten honors and positioned himself as a lottery-level NBA prospect. What made Mills special at Michigan wasn't just his stats, he was his versatility. At the time when most big men stayed near the basket, Mills could step outside, handle the ball a little bit, and knock down jump shots with consistency. Fresh off his stellar senior year at Michigan, Mills entered the 1990 NBA draft with considerable buzz. Mills was drafted in 1990 by the Milwaukee Bucks with the 16th overall pick, who later traded his rights to the Denver Nuggets. Mills arrived in Denver during an interesting transition period for the franchise. The Nuggets were moving on from the Doug Moe era and its run-and-gun offensive style, with Paul Westhead taking over as head coach. If you remember Westhead's coaching philosophy, you know he was famous for his extremely up-tempo system that he previously used at Loyola Marymount. This seemed like it might be a good fit for a mobile big man like Mills, who could run the floor and hit outside shots. However, things didn't quite click for Mills in the Mile High City. His rookie season was, to put it mildly, a struggle. Mills appeared in just 17 games for the Nuggets during the 90-91 season, averaging a modest 3.3 points and 2 rebounds a game in very limited time. Terry Mills found himself traded to the New Jersey Nets. Looking back, this move to New Jersey turned out to be exactly what the young power forward needed to jumpstart his NBA career. When Mills arrived in New Jersey, the Nets were, well, let's just say they were not exactly a powerhouse. The team was coming off a disappointing 26-win season and looking to rebuild around young talents like Derek Coleman and Kenny Anderson. While not in the spotlight, this situation actually provided Mills with something he did not have in Denver, an opportunity to play meaningful minutes and develop his game. Under head coach Bill Fitch, Mills began to show flashes of the player he would eventually become. The 91-92 season saw a significant uptick in his production across the board. Mills put up 9.2 points and 5.1 rebounds per game for the Nets while playing about 20 minutes per contest. That is not superstar territory, but it represented a substantial improvement and showed that Mills belonged in the NBA. What really started to emerge during his Nets tenure was his outside shooting, the skill that would eventually define his career. Mills was establishing himself as a solid rotation player, but bigger things were on the horizon. After just one full season with the Nets, Mills was on the move again. In a fortunate turn of events for his career, he was signed by his hometown Detroit Pistons as a free agent before the 1992-93 season. When Terry Mills signed with the Detroit Pistons in 1992 was a homecoming. See, he was born in Romulus, Michigan, and having started at the University of Michigan, Mills was returning to the place where his basketball journey began. Mills joined the Pistons as an interesting time in the franchise's history. The Bad Boys era that had produced back-to-back championships in 1989 and 1990 was winding down. Isaiah Thomas was in the twilight of his career. Bill Laimbeer would soon retire, and the team was in transition. For 25-year-old Terry Mills, this presented the perfect opportunity. Under head coach Don Chaney and later Doug Collins, Mills quickly established himself as a valuable rotation player. In his first season with Detroit, he averaged 11.1 points and 5.6 rebounds per game. Solid numbers that showed his growth as a player. Mills' best season with the Pistons came in 94 and 95, when he averaged 15.6 points and 7.3 rebounds per game while shooting a respectable 36.5% from three-point range. What made Mills special during the Pistons years was not just his scoring. It was his basketball IQ and versatility. He could play alongside traditional centers like Olden Polynice and Oliver Miller, providing spacing for the offense, or he could slide over to the center position himself in smaller lineups. This adaptability made him invaluable to the Pistons during their rebuilding years. Off the court, Mills became a fan favorite in Detroit. The local kid who had made it good resonated with the blue-collar Detroit fan base. His journey from Romulus High School to Michigan to the Pistons embodied a hometown success story that fans could rally behind during what were sometimes difficult years for the franchise. The Pistons teams Mills played on were championship contenders like the Bad Boys that preceded them. They made the playoffs a couple of times, but were never serious threats. Yet Mills' development into one of the league's best shooting big men provided a bright spot for fans and foreshadowed the direction of the NBA would eventually take, where big men with outside shooting touch would become highly coveted. Mills remained with the Pistons until 1997, when he was traded to the Miami Heat. When Mills arrived in Miami, he was joining a Heat team with serious playoff aspirations. Pat Riley was running the show as both coach and team president, and he had assembled a squad built around all-star center Alonzo Mourning and point guard Tim Hardaway. This wasn't just a playoff team, this was a group with championship ambitions. For Mills, this presented both an opportunity and a challenge. See, on one hand, he was now playing meaningful games for a contender. And on the other hand, his role would need to change from a featured scoring option he sometimes was in Detroit to more of a specialized supporting piece in Miami's system. Riley's Heat teams were known for their defensive intensity and disciplined approach. They weren't exactly known for running and gunning, but Mills' ability to stretch the floor as a big man still had its value in the half-court sets. Playing alongside a dominant interior presence like Mourning, Mills' outside shooting could potentially create spacing that would make Miami's offense more dynamic. Mills' first season in Miami saw him take on a key role as a reserve. His numbers dipped from his Detroit days. He was averaging 7.1 points and 4.3 rebounds in about 19 minutes per game. But he continued to showcase his three-point shooting ability, connecting on a solid 36.5% from beyond the arc. The Heat had an excellent regular season, finishing with 55 wins and capturing the Atlantic Division title. Mills was part of a solid bench unit that included fellow veterans like Eric Murdoch and Mark Strickland. When the playoffs rolled around, Miami defeated the Knicks in the first round before falling to the Chicago Bulls in the Eastern Conference Finals. Though Mills' playoff minutes were limited, he had contributed to the most successful season of his NBA career to that point in terms of team success. The 1998-99 season was unusual because across the NBA, due to a lockout that had shortened the schedule to just 50 games. Mills' role with the Heat diminished somewhat during the campaign, as he averaged 5.2 points in about 16 minutes per game. The Heat again had a strong regular season, going 33-17, but they suffered a first-round upset at the hands of the New York Knicks, who went on to make a surprising run in the NBA Finals as an 8th seed. What stands out about Mills' Miami time wasn't so much as individual accomplishments, as it was his adaptation to a role on a winning team. See, after years of putting up good numbers on mediocre Pistons squads, Mills showed he could adjust his game fit to what a contender needed. He embraced the Heat culture of disciplined defense while still providing the outside shooting that made him unique. After his 2-season stint with the Miami Heat, Terry Mills found himself coming full circle in the summer of 1999. The Detroit Pistons, the team where he had enjoyed his most productive years, brought him back as a free agent. The Detroit team Mills rejoined was quite different from the one he had left in 1997. The Pistons were now led by Grant Hill, who had developed into a legitimate superstar and featured promising young players like Jerry Stackhouse. The Pistons were trying to build a contender around Hill, though those efforts were ultimately derailed when Hill departed for Orlando in 2000. In his return season with Detroit, Mills settled into a veteran role off the bench, and at 32 years old, he wasn't the same scoring threat he had been during his mid-20s, but his experience and shooting touch still made him a valuable piece for the rotation. He averaged 7 points a game and 3.6 rebounds, while still showcasing his ability to stretch the floor with his three-point shooting. The 2000-2001 season was Mills' last in the NBA, and it came with an unexpected twist. After playing 27 games for the Pistons, Mills was traded to the Indiana Pacers in February of 2001. Mills' time with the Pacers was brief but noteworthy. He appeared in just 21 games for Indiana, averaging 3.1 points in about 10 minutes of game action. While these numbers were modest, Mills provided the playoff-bound Pacers with a veteran presence and floor spacing in limited minutes. The Isaiah Thomas-coached Pacers reached the first round of the playoffs, giving Mills one last, final taste of postseason basketball before he hung up his sneakers. What made Mills special wasn't just his shooting touch, but his basketball IQ. He understood positioning and how to use his shooting ability to create advantages for his team. If defenders came out to guard him at the three-point line, he'd use his size to back them down. If they stayed in the paint, he'd make them pay with his jumper. His legacy lives on as one of those players who was ahead of his time. If Terry Mills played in today's three-point happy NBA, he might have been an even bigger star. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate you guys. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and stay safe.